Today I'm making burek dough. I need 500 grams of flour, and then I'm going to convert it to you into pounds. "500 grams of flour equals 1 pound, 1 ounce of American units. I have my 500 grams of flour. I'm going to add in about a half a teaspoon of salt into the dough. I use sea salt. I'm also going to add a teaspoon of vinegar. I think the vinegar helps break down the gluten so it's easier to stretch later. And then I'm going to add in 300 milliliters of water, which is 1.25 cups. On the water, you're going to have to check to make sure how the dough is. In the summertime, I'm pretty exact on 300 milliliters, but in the winter, because there's no humidity in the air, I usually have to add a smidgen more. So we're going to let this mix till it becomes a nice ball. Form a nice ball inside, but it's very rough looking. So what you want to do now is let your mixer knead it for another 5 minutes so it's nice and smooth and elastic. My mother would never use a mixer. She would do this by hand. So she would mix 5 to 10 minutes, knead it by hand. So it's been mixing for about 5 minutes. It's very elasticy. Has a nice feel to it, nice silky and soft. What I like to do also is I like to take my dough and just knead it a little bit by hand. No flour is needed. It's not sticky. It's nice and smooth. A little heavy kneading by hand I think helps a little bit just to smoothen out the rough edges if there are any left that your mixer doesn't get. You want to form it into a nice ball. I put it into a oiled pan. I put some oil on top. I'm going to cover it, and then I'm going to put it to just sit someplace nice and warm out of a draft for a minimum of an hour. I like to let mine sit a little longer, so I probably let mine sit for like 2 hours. In a skillet, I am sauteing 3 large onions on about a tablespoon of oil. All right, so I sauteed my onions. I like to add 2 teaspoons of pepper directly into my onions. You can put it into the meat. I just prefer it in the onions. It kind of softens up the pepper. I think it makes it mix much nicer in the meat. And in this bowl, I have 4 pounds of ground pork. It's a coarse ground pork. I'm going to add my onions into it with the pepper. I like sauteing it so it's not as sharp of an onion taste. And then in here, I'm going to add 1 heaping tablespoon of salt. Then I'm going to mix this all together, and this will be my burek filling. All right, so everything is mixed up, and I want to make sure I have enough salt for my liking. So a lot of times what I can do is I'll take a little bit of meat, I'll just patty it up, and I'll fry it up in that skillet that I sauteed the onions in. All right, so I cooked a little bit up. I want to taste it to see if it needs more salt or pepper. Definitely needs more salt. So I'm going to add in another tablespoon of salt. And it needs some more pepper. I'm going to add in about 1.5 teaspoons, 2 teaspoons of pepper. This is all to taste, how peppery you like it, how salty you like it. So I would definitely recommend that you try it, cook it and try it, and see what your personal taste preference is. And I'm gonna mix it up, and I'm gonna just let it sit for a little bit in the refrigerator while I pull my burek dough. All right, we're gonna take it out of the pan. Lay it in the middle of the table. We'll pour some oil on it. Rub in the oil. And your dough is very pliable. So you want to start pulling from the middle, not from the ends yet. I have help doing this, but you can do this by yourself. It just takes a couple extra minutes. Right here, Scott. See, the middle is a little thick, and you want to pull it. If you feel like the dough doesn't want to stretch, just let it rest. You don't have to work as a team. He can pull his side and I'll pull my side. It's really thick on the ends. This will let you stretch it so you can hook it over the table. It kind of anchors it as you hook it. I have a little bit of hole. That's okay. You just want to patch it and let that rest. That's going to be a hole. I can tell you right now, it's a weak spot, but that's okay. We have a lot of dough here. Pretty much stretched out. We have a couple holes, which are okay. You want to go down the side as much as you can. You're going to use all that dough. And you should be able to see through the dough. It's nice and thin. Just keep pulling. See how it stretches really nicely here? All right, and your next step is going to be, you're going to take your hand and you're going to cut off this hard edge because you don't want to bake this hard edge. And it comes right off. I'll take my pork mixture that I had, and I'm going to take it into pieces. You don't want too big of a hunks because that's what you're going to be eating. And you're going to do this down both sides of your dough. Flip over our dough that was hanging over. As you can see, it's really nice and thin. And then you're just going to roll toward the middle. I use the same pan that I had my dough in. You're going to take it, you're going to put it in. I just like to flip it around. Oh, I got too much. All right, and now I'm just going to stick that in the oven. It's been baking for about 40 minutes at 350 degrees. I do this. This is my own special thing. I put a half a cup of water with a tablespoon of oil, and I just like to brush it on. It just softens it up a little bit. And then I cover it with a towel for 5 minutes and let it cool down, 5 to 10 minutes.